Here we go!
Welcome to the Nintendo PowerZone. We are a video cast / podcast dedicated to bringing you the best Nintendo-related topics. As always, I'm your host, Nice1983, and today I am joined by Blues. Hey, man, welcome to the show. How you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm feeling really good. It's been a good sort of week so far in terms of the whole holiday hubbub going on. And I'm super excited for this episode. It's a big episode.
Oh, most definitely going to be a big one. Oh, so guys, normally we get this year in review out before Christmas. This year, we decided we were going to wait till after Christmas, but before New Year's, so you guys have a good New Year's Eve, gift. But for right now, we're going to talk about an amazing year that Nintendo had. I would like to welcome everyone to our third annual year in review, and I cannot believe that this is the third year in review that I'm doing on this podcast. And I couldn't be happier that this year has been so freaking phenomenal. There was so much Nintendo hype this year that I'm actually not sure we're going to be able to cover everything that the way that we normally do. But I think we're going to be able to get a lot of the stuff done. This is going to be a 2-part episode, so I hope everybody is looking forward to having 2 episodes to listen to. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to do the first 6 months, and then that's how we're going to do in one episode, and then the second 6 months in the second part. So, big episode. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and we're going to skip the Nintendo news report. So we're going to just go ahead and jump right in. But before we do that, how was your Christmas, man?
It was a weirder Christmas this year. I think it's the first Christmas where everyone's sort of been moved out from my old home. So we're all sort of figuring out, all right, who's going to whose house when. But it was a fun, good time nonetheless. Interesting story. I ended up uninstalling an old faucet and sink basin and drain pipe and installing a new one in my mom's place. And I have no plumbing experience whatsoever. And it has no leaks, which I'm very happy about because I know that was going to be an issue. But I am successfully a plumber in training, I guess you can call me now, which is super cool.
Nice. Any Nintendo-related gifts for the holidays?
I got Monster Hunter Stories for 3DS, and I got Skyrim for the Switch. And that's about it. Nice. Nintendo stuff. I mean, I mostly just asked for things for the apartment. Like I got some nice light bulbs, which were duly needed. Light bulbs are very important this year. I got an end table, etc.
We nerded out this year. We got some Nintendo themed fixtures for the apartment. As you can see right here in the background, we got
chainsaw
lamp from ThinkGeek. Video is coming soon on that, guys. We're going to do a review for that.
I was actually going to say, that's super cool lamp. I just noticed that.
We actually got 2 of them. Yeah. We got one on the other side of the room. We got a couple of these lamps, and then we've got a third lamp that is looking like it's a question block. And you pull the drawstring.
You pull the chain, and it lights up. Oh, it's super cool.
And the figure on the chain is Mario, so it looks pretty cool. Outside of that, cool, I got a couple of video game related books, like the Super Mario 3 book and the Final Fantasy 5 book by Chris Kohler. These are from Boss Fight Books. I've read a few of Chris Kohler's books before. They are really good. Not a lot of books on video game development, especially Japanese video game development.
Yes.
So they're really good reads. I suggest everybody go to your local Books A Million. They have them there.
Very cool.
It was a very Nintendo-filled Christmas. I got a set of Legos that build. Well, they're like bootleg Legos, but they build like a chibi version of Mario, which are pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and put those together this week. But yeah, been an eventful Christmas. Second Christmas with my niece. She's 1. She was born last July, so this is her second Christmas. And I got her a Build-A-Bear Yoshi. She loves it, so that's a lot of fun. Christmas was good this year, and hopefully New Year's is going to be even better. But speaking of New Year's, when Nintendo started off this year, back in January, they hit us hard. So January 13th, 2017 was the Nintendo Switch event. And this was a weird thing because it was like a cross between, one of their old E3 shows, but with like the sensibilities of their more recent Nintendo Directs. But very cool. A lot of awesome news that got unpacked there. And we got our first look at what the system could do, what it could handle. Couple of things that stood out to me from the Nintendo Switch event were the Joy-Cons. We didn't know how they would work initially when they showed us that trailer back in October of 2016, but we got a good look at the Joy-Cons. They told us about HD Rumble. We got to see a lot of cool stuff that these things could do. And I was on board. I know a lot of people were skeptical, but I was legitimately thinking, holy crap, motion controls without a sensor bar. This is one of those things where I was like, I love the Wii, but the sensor bar and the setup of a Wii is so tedious. So tedious. To think that we could do some motion-based games and not have, the sensor bar for, minor point sensations, I thought that was really cool. The HD Rumble, I wasn't really sold on HD Rumble, but not because of the reasons that everybody else wasn't. I'm not sold on Rumble because I keep wondering, do we still need Rumble in 2017? Does that really change a game for people? I get it that it might change some games, but it's one of those things where I barely noticed the Rumble features in games. But HD Rumble made me a believer once I got my hands on it. But initially, when they talked about it, I wasn't on board with it. Another thing I wasn't on board with initially was ARMS. When they showed that ARMS trailer in that Switch presentation, I was like, what is this? Why are you doing a boxing game and it's not Punch-Out? That was my reaction. I was like, why isn't this Punch-Out? Little Mac's going to be a guest character at the very least, right? No. Still, I thought it was a weird game to show off. I was actually, I thought more of 1-2 Switch than I thought of ARMS at the time. That's how little I thought of ARMS, because I was like, what is this game? Lo and behold, I have to eat my words because ARMS is one of my favorite games in 2017. But the way they showed it off, just it wasn't all that appealing to me. What else got revealed at that?
There was the initial games list in Breath of the Wild, right?
Yes. Oh, and Splatoon 2. That's where they confirmed that it was actually Splatoon 2
and not a rehash.
Not Splatoon 1.5, like it was reported by Laura Kate Dale, or I don't remember. I think it was Laura Kate Dale who reported that it was Splatoon 1.5.
And expanded, yeah.
But it was an official, release in the Splatoon chronology. So I thought that was cool. We saw a lot. We saw Project Octopath Traveler for the first time. Saw a couple Dragon Quest games.
Yeah.
Fire Emblems had a trailer for the Fire Emblem Warriors, and then they announced that an actual Fire Emblem game was going to be coming to the Switch. So we saw and we heard a lot. Then there was the whole EA debacle where
FIFA.
They brought that president out to say we're supporting the Nintendo Switch, and you're supporting the game with FIFA. Not the best. Right off the bat, right when they said FIFA, I know that the temperature for EA's support for the Wii U was going to be very lukewarm. Everybody thought so, and as we get on later in this year in review, we're going to talk a little bit more about EA and how they truly are supporting the Switch in 2017 and beyond. But it was a good event. But I think the thing that we were all waiting for in this January Switch event was them talking about Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did they drag us along. They really made us wait. There were so many good things they did in this event. They started by telling us a price point. That was a great way to start, because I don't think anybody was too disappointed with where the price point was. I think initial reports were that it was going to be $250. I wasn't on board with that. I was like, there's no way they're going to release a hybrid console for $200. $300, $350 was where I thought we would really land. But they announced the price of $300. I was like, that's fair. That's a good price for a system that is going to do the things that this thing is supposed to do, since we really didn't know if any of this stuff was truly going to work back then. And, but there was a lot of weird stuff in between, especially like the Suda 51 things. When we finally get to the end, and they start teasing us. They show us this beautiful Breath of the Wild trailer.
Yeah.
The best Breath of the Wild trailer that they had done up to that point.
Definitely.
Then they finally dropped the release date, March 3rd, 2017, launch title for the Switch. Day 1 Switch title.
Mm-hmm.
I freaked out. I was like, oh my god, this was worth it. Especially considering that this event started at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, which, I mean, I'm up, and I'm not doing anything better with my time because I'm not a big sleeper. But still, they were asking for a lot for, the majority of people on the East Coast. They were like, yeah, we're going to do this at, 11 p.m., and it's about an hour long. Hope you guys can ride with us. So, yeah, they showed off that trailer. They showed off that release date. The world collectively freaked out. I immediately went to GameStop right after the event to go pre-order a Switch. Camped out all night with a bunch of other people. Pre-ordered my Switch the next morning when the store opened. That's how hype I was after seeing that Breath of the Wild trailer. I was more hype after the Breath of the Wild trailer than everything they showed off during the entire, Switch event. And there was, like I said, there was a lot of stuff to be hyped out about.
Yes.
But that was what got me. I'm like, I'm at the store. It wasn't like I wasn't going to try to get a Switch day one anyway, but I secured I'm not a pre-order guy. So, like, for them to, like, make me go out and get a pre-order, that's a big deal. But what are your thoughts on the Switch event, Brendan?
It made me more skeptical about the system itself than the initial October trailer. The October trailer really got me excited. And I don't know why it didn't get me quite as excited. I learned more, which got me more at peace with certain things. Okay, it's going to cost $299.99. That's fine. Release date, blah blah blah. That's cool, and that put me at ease a bit more about this, like what we're expecting from some of it. But then learning about the Joy-Cons, I was super excited about the Joy-Cons in the October trailer, and then I wasn't as much after the whole Ice Cubes thing they showed. I don't know why. But then after playing Breath of the Wild with the Joy-Cons, I'm like, okay, no, Joy-Cons are my new favorite way to play games. Because it's like not being tethered to the controllers like right here in front of you is great. You can have like one arm at your side, one above your head, one underneath your leg, still play the game. And it just feels really great to not have to have your both hands centered around a controller that can't be separated, I guess. And that's
or you could do what Koizumi-san. You could do what Koizumi-san was doing. He's just laying on the couch, just like, sprawled out.
That's a good way to play for me, in all honesty.
I rarely play with the Joy-Con separated. It just feels weird to me. But I'm an old gamer at this point. But
I usually go for Pro Controller, in all honesty. But I love the Joy-Con separated.
Honestly, my preferred control scheme is in the grip. And that was the weirdest controller setup I thought there would be out of all of them was the Joy-Con in the grip. It's actually my favorite. Not for certain games like Splatoon 2. It's not my ideal way to play, just because of the analog sticks that the Joy-Cons have. But I played 90% of Breath of the Wild using the Joy-Con grip. Like, I had my Pro Controller there. It was just sitting in the box. I was just too busy playing with the Joy-Con grips because they just feel like they felt natural. They felt comfortable. So I really enjoyed that. So yeah, the January Switch event, it was hype in my opinion, but I mean, it got everybody's attention in all the right ways. I think there were some misses though. Like there were a lot of like points where I think they thought there would be better reception to things that they were announcing. Especially like Suda51. When he's saying he wants to bring Travis Touchdown back, but he's doing it with all these weird references, and even the poor translator had like issues trying to like translate what he was saying. So it makes me wonder, like, if Suda was actually being slightly inappropriate. That's why the guy was like stumbling on his words. I know there are transcripts of it, but I'm not gonna sit there and read the transcripts of what Suda was saying. I mean, obviously later on we learned what Suda was talking about, and we'll get to that later. But yeah, January was a pretty, it was, they wrapped it up and that was it. Then the next day they had like that event at the Nintendo New York store where a bunch of people got to play the games, and they showed off a bunch of games with a Treehouse event. That was cool. I pretty much sat there watching like all 8 hours of coverage that they did for the Treehouse event. We saw Breath of the Wild, we saw ARMS, we saw Splatoon 2, we saw a lot of games in action at the event the next day. But that was it. There wasn't a whole lot more to be said until, they wanted to release the Switch in March. So that left the rest of January feeling pretty bare, and if you were a Wii U owner, there were no major games for you. Like the Wii U was pretty... No. Yeah, the Wii U pretty much died with Paper Mario...
Color Splash.
Color Splash, yeah, Color Splash. That was pretty much it. After Color Splash, you had nothing to look forward to as a Wii U owner. So we just had to sit there patiently and, deal with, the 2.5 month wait for the release of the Switch. But that's 2.5 months from now. Let's go ahead and slide into February real quick. So February was a little bit of an eventful month. The Castlevania Netflix series got announced. This is a weird thing. Konami is in this very weird place right now.
Definitely.
Where, they've kind of spurned Hideo Kojima. He's gone. He's out working for Sony, making Death Stranding, and they want to focus, on mobile IPs. And I don't know what to say about, what they're doing in the realm of video games. So it was really odd to see them take a franchise and find a way to mass market it, in a sense. So they did the deal with Netflix. They announced a Castlevania series. This got me hyped because I'm a huge old school Castlevania fan. I'm a huge fan of like just the Metroidvania style of gaming. Yeah, that always makes me happy. And it was going to be interesting to see, characters from the Castlevania series worked into a TV show. I mean, these are larger than life characters. I mean, Belmont, especially Simon. Simon Belmont is a character near and dear to my heart. So it was really interesting to think that there was a possibility.
Trevor star of the Netflix show?
Yeah. But upon the announcement, I was thinking that they're gonna go with Simon because Simon is the most popular.
Simon's the iconic one. Yeah.
Yeah. It was odd that they actually went and told Trevor's story in the actual series itself.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense in a theory. So
I think it's because we expected them to do the Simon story that they threw us for a loop by not doing. But it was cool that they announced the series. I thought this was an interesting announcement, and I was definitely looked forward to it. Moving on though, so Nintendo they're trying to do their thing on the mobile front. They want to make as many mobile games as they can because it's a lucrative business for them. Super Mario Run got released back in December of 2016 for iOS, and it did pretty good for them, but it was under their bar. Like they made like $3 million off of the game or something, like $30 million off of the game. They were charging $10 a pop for it.
Yeah.
So they did 3 million downloads. That's $30 million, and then you split that cost with Apple since they take like 50% or whatever.
Yeah.
It did fair, but it was under what they thought it would do. I think has something to do with the price point. Obviously, $10.
Yeah, $10 is a bit much for a mobile game. Yeah.
So what they decided to do was try their hand at a free to play model, and they did that with Fire Emblem Heroes. That got released on February 2nd. That was a pretty big release for them. Like that is their most profitable mobile game to date.
Yes.
And they had a direct for it and everything. Like they literally had a Fire Emblem direct, and in that direct they talked about what the game was. Then they had the voting to vote for the voting system where you vote for your heroes, and whoever would win would make it into the game. So they incorporated user activity even before the release of the game, and during the release of the game, they were able to just really capitalize on a lot of hype for the franchise. Yes. I personally am not a huge fan of this game. Fire Emblem games have really good stories, and they're really character driven. Fire Emblem Heroes is more like Fire Emblem Light, in my opinion. They have the most minimalistic of stories. It's basically fight this guy, try to recruit him to your team, and that's pretty much the crux of the game. I've dropped off the game, but for that first like month and a half that it was released, I got really into it, but then got bored with it like after a while. I mean, what are your thoughts on the Fire Emblem Heroes?
So I was a big fan of Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. I was a big fan of Sacred Stones and so another one on the Game Boy that I'm forgetting. Which sounds bad. I should have looked it up first. But but I really didn't like Awakening, and I don't know why. I really didn't like Awakening, and I didn't like Fates. I haven't even bothered with Echoes, even though I know it's like supposed to be like the older ones. I just don't want to take risks with the new Fire Emblem games anymore. But like, it does. You're right. It's not very story heavy or character driven, and it's not. It feels very Fire Emblem light. But I almost like it more than what they're putting out for the mainstream Fire Emblem games currently, because I feel like it's a quick play. Like, just do a little map, take out all the enemies of the small map with not too much thinking. You're only really thinking about like stats and weapon triangles. You're not doing much in the way of like too many items or anything. And so I feel like the touch screen to control is very, very nice. And so I almost like it more in this sense than I do on the mainstream current ones. And it's a very fun to play as a quick pickup play, then get some orbs to redeem some stuff, and then put it down for a couple hours, have some free time, do a couple more maps, etc. And I really like it more than the actual Fire Emblem games at this point. I don't know.
It's weird. For me, it's because of the major lack of story, it doesn't appeal to me as much as I kind of want it to. I will say this. I love the sprite work on the game. Some phenomenal Fire Emblem sprites. And then the full character art is some of the best character art that we've seen in the series thus far. Like,
I will also agree, yes.
Yeah, that part of the game, I think they got 100% right. I wouldn't mind a Fire Emblem game, that looks like that on either the Switch or the 3DS. If they look like that, I'm completely on board, because
same.
I think the art style works great for Fire Emblem. I think my major issue is that I just don't feel like there's a whole lot of story behind the game, and it kind of makes sense though, because it's a mobile experience.
It's mobile, non-canon, every hero from everywhere into one.
Exactly. So they don't have to work too hard on the story. They can kind of get by on the love that people have for the franchise with this game.
There also is a story mode, which is interesting take in a story where it's like you got the people that can turn the gate on, people that can turn the gate off, and they're warring, which I thought was an interesting take. But it's a story nonetheless.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad game. It's just it's not necessarily my cup of tea. I'm like, especially after Fire Emblem Fates, which is such a big game, and the story in that game, while it has its cliche moments, it is like a fully fleshed out story.
Yeah.
So to cap things off in February, there was one pretty big announcement from Nintendo, and this one kind of drew a little bit of ire, and I mean, some people were happy about it, a lot of people weren't. Breath of the Wild DLC was announced. The Season Pass was announced a month before the game launched, and they didn't tell us much about it. They just said it was coming, and it would be out after the game at some point. No definitive release dates on the Season Pass. Nothing, no major news on what it would include. So it was really kind of off-putting, especially for me. I'm a huge fan of the Legend of Zelda series, and to see that there was going to be extra content or content that just didn't fit into the game initially made me think that, after all the time you guys took to develop this game, did you not release a finished product? That was going on in the back of my mind, but I never really outright voiced those opinions, but it was something that I thought about. Just a weird way to announce DLC. Especially since they didn't show any footage. They didn't show anything. They didn't tell us what it was. No. So it was just an odd choice. Maybe they should have waited to the release of the game before making that kind of judgment. But still, it was announced. They told us it was coming, and it was just really, really weird. Like I said, I was really skeptical of it. I was like, what is this? Why would you announce it and not show off anything? It just left a sour taste in my mouth on a game that I had been anticipating, since 2013 or 14 when they first showed that game off at E3. Like, you have me hyped for this game.
2012. Like, it's confirmed.
I think that's when they confirmed it. They didn't show anything off until I believe the 2013 E3.
Yeah, I believe so.
And then, they derailed the hype train a little bit by announcing this DLC. That's how I felt initially. But yeah, February wrapped up. February was a slower month, but there were some still big news releases in that month. So it was just Nintendo building like a slow hype train. They started with the January event. That got the train chugging along. February, we're still building up, picking up some steam. But March 3rd, 2017, I go to GameStop, 10 o'clock, just camp out with a bunch of other Nintendo fans. GameStop was really on point, at least my local GameStop. They had two separate lines, one line for pre-orders, one line for, people who were going to try to get their hands on this coveted device.
On day one.
I was really surprised by the length of the line at my GameStop. Pretty much because I was surprised that there were that many people waiting for a Nintendo console.
Yeah, definitely.
But March 3rd.
My expectations of the Switch launch compared to the Wii U launch were pretty much inverted. At the Wii U launch, I was heavily anticipating, be sold out for months, and I had to go there like at midnight get it because I didn't have pre-order for the Wii U. I waited outside by Kmart, like for Kmart to open, and everywhere I saw, pretty much there was no lines for the Wii U at all. I was the only one going to Kmart for the Wii U, etc. And so I waited there for pretty much nothing. And then, so I expected huge sellouts, and I didn't get any sales at any party and no campers, etc. And that was weird. And then this launch, it was the opposite. I actually expected it to not be that big of a hype up launch because the Wii U. Of course not.
See, I'm the opposite. I didn't get a Wii U day one. I actually waited about 5 months into the Wii U's lifespan before I decided to pick one up. The Switch, like I said, that January event hyped me up. It was really the Breath of the Wild trailer. Got me super hyped to go ahead and go get one. And I was even more hyped to unbox the Switch. That's the thing, though. When the Wii U launched, I hadn't started the YouTube page and I hadn't started, the podcast. Yeah. So my expectations for the Wii U were just that of a fan. Obviously, it's been 2 years since I started doing that, and this is my first console launch as a Nintendo podcaster and as a Nintendo YouTube personality. My aura had to be different for this specific console launch. I needed to make sure that I was immediately, able to get a Switch. Yes. There was no if, and, or buts. I could not sit on the sidelines and just hope to get a Nintendo Switch within a relatively, short window. I had to secure it. And not only did I pre-order my Switch, day one, I paid it off completely. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to say goodbye to, $300. But initially, all I did was buy the Switch and Breath of the Wild. Those were the only two things I pre-ordered. I got lucky. I actually bought 3 Nintendo Switches on day one.
So the one from GameStop, one from Amazon, and what else?
Got one from Target for Mario After Party. So After Party didn't secure a pre-order for the Nintendo Switch, and I had. And, I had secured 2, but, they were both spoken for. The day that the Switch released, I ended up after getting home with my Switch, the first thing I had to do was film an unboxing of the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, which let me tell you, man, it's torture when all you want to do is open
crack it open in the car.
You just want to open it and play the game. You just want to play the game. I wasn't even driving that night. My brother was driving that night, so I could have easily just opened up the box in the car and started playing. But no, I waited till I got to the house, unboxed it there, filmed it, uploaded the video, edited and uploaded the video before I got a chance to actually play my Switch.
That's torture.
By the time I finally did all of that, it was 3 a.m. So I got home at 12:45. From 12:45 to 3 a.m. editing, filming, editing, uploading. Then I got to go ahead and load the Switch up. And I was so excited to play the Switch, I didn't even go through the effort of connecting the dock to the TV.
Mm-hmm.
I went straight into handheld mode, and I played until 6 a.m. Then I had to take my fiance to work. So, put the Switch on the charger, get in the car, and drive her to work. She worked at 8. So it takes her forever to get ready. So from 6 to 8 is just helping her get ready for work. Finally get her to her job. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, well, Target's open at 8. Let me just go to Target. Maybe I can get a Pro controller. Go to Target. Go to the video game section immediately. They have no Switch anything. And I was like, what the hell? Get to the front. I go to the front counter. I'm like, hey, do you guys have any Switch accessories? They're like, oh yeah, go to customer service. Go to customer service. They've got Switches. I'm like,
Well, you don't have the Pro controllers themselves.
No, they have everything, man.
Okay.
They've got the Breath of the Wild amiibo. They've got Pro controllers. They've got extra Joy-Cons, red and blue Joy-Cons. So I went there looking to just buy a Pro controller. Ended up leaving with an extra set of red and blue Joy-Cons, a Pro controller. Called Mario after party. I'm like, I know he's at work, but I know he didn't get a Switch. I know he wanted one. I was like, hey, I'm gonna buy you a Switch. Call me back so we can talk about getting some money back down on this thing. So he calls me on his lunch break. He's like, yo, what's up? You found a Switch? I was like, yeah, I already bought it. If you want it, just pay me, what I paid, and we're good to go. So secured 3 Switches on launch day, which was crazy. The worst part, though, was my fiance had to wait. So she got off of work at 5.
Mm-hmm.
Her Switch had yet to be shipped. My brother lives one street over. He literally lives one street over, and he got his second Switch in the morning. We didn't get our second Switch until 8 p.m., so she was super heated. But the Switch launch day was crazy. Breath of the Wild was amazing. And yeah, that was my Switch launch day. Just a lot of crazy things that ended with me buying 3 Nintendo Switches in one day. How did your Switch?
I had a pre-order secured, and then come sometime in February, I'm like, I'm gonna cancel the pre-order, blah 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 blah, and I'll just wait a month or so. And it was I wanted one day one, but it was more practical to wait. And so I got one. I canceled the pre-order. And all my friends got them day one. I'm like, okay, shoot, I might want to get one sooner now. But it also kind of bummed me out because it was the first Nintendo console I bought in a while that I didn't get quite on day one. I got the 3DS day one. I got the Wii U day one. The DSi fairly day one, I think. I don't know. But so it was the first one that I really wanted that I didn't get day one, which kind of bugged me too, because I had bragging rights that I got the Wii U day one, midnight, whatever. But I didn't have that with this. But I managed to secure my Switch in I think April, around Easter, I believe. I got my Switch, got Mario Kart 8, got Breath of the Wild, and I think Bomberman R, and that was a good time. I really enjoyed it. I got Snake Pass to the on too with Snipper Clips, which were a lot of fun as well. So I didn't have a day one experience really, other than all my friends telling me how cool it is.
I guess we got to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to the Switch, and that's The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Probably the best launch game any consumer could ever have for a console. You're not getting a launch title of this caliber on your Xbox One or your PS4. I'm not saying that those consoles have bad libraries because, well, clearly the PlayStation 4 does not have a bad video game library. But we're talking about perfect launch titles. Those consoles have not had it. And for the most part, Nintendo's never really had a perfect launch title other than, well, since Mario 64. So it was really, really nice to see this game get the critical reception that it deserves. So this game has a Metacritic score of 97, based on 109 reviews. This is like the second highest rated game of all time. The only game that's rated higher than this is Ocarina of Time with a 98.
But it's also with less reviews total, so it has higher averages of getting higher scores.
Yeah. So Breath of the Wild, IGN gave it a perfect score. GameSpot gave it a perfect score. Polygon gave it a perfect score. This game released to critical praise, and man, it was just such a strong launch title, and the ability to play it on the go if you bought the Nintendo Switch version is what makes that game so good.
Yes.
Like I said, I didn't even connect the console, the dock to the TV. When all was said and done, I played the first 6 hours of Breath of the Wild handheld. 6 hours playing that game handheld, sitting in my living room. Nobody was home but me. And I'm sitting in my living room playing Breath of the Wild handheld mode. It was only until I'm like, what time is it? And I look at the time and I was like, holy crap. I've been playing for 6 hours this way. That's when I decided to, dock it. And I honestly, that's where the highest praise I have for this game. It's not the beautiful world. It's not, the awesome mechanics. It's the portability of Breath of the Wild that makes it such a good game, in my opinion. And a lot of other people would agree with me as far as the reviews are concerned. Like, there are a few challenges that are difficult because of handheld mode, like any shrine that uses motion control. But for the most part, it is one of the best games to play handheld. It might be the best handheld game on the Switch right now.
So, for Breath of the Wild, I'm thoroughly blown away with it every single time I play it, and I've gone back. I've done a couple different runs. I did like by just going through it as I am. But then I'm like, okay, well, everyone does all this creative stuff online, so I'm gonna just mess around, see what I can do creatively. So I did a run like that. Then I did like a challenge run, and then I did just like the DLC runs, etc. And it blows me away every single time I go through each run, and it's very different from a lot of the games that I'm now playing with, like Mario Odyssey and Xenoblade, in terms of how I get lost in the world in those games, which I want to talk about sometime later, but not right now. But so I absolutely love it. As you say, for a perfect launch title, having one of the highest rated games in history as an exclusive launch title is definitely worth the critical claim of perfect launch title. I think it doesn't. You're right. There are no Xbox or PlayStation games that have the highest rated game as a day one launch exclusive. That just doesn't happen with anywhere else. So that was very good for the Switch.
No, and you think about it, it's a launch title for their newest console that would eventually go on to win numerous Game of the Year awards. Like, that doesn't happen. That just literally doesn't happen. No. And honestly, that was just the launch. I mean, if you think about it, if we go back to that January event and you think about what they announced at that January event, obviously Mario Odyssey was like announced there, and that was the first time we saw the Splatoon.
I think
Octopath.
Bethesda had to say.
Yeah, Skyrim. They
Mhm.
announced, Skyrim, which, you know, even though I'm not a huge Skyrim fan, I understand like the longevity that game has and the critical and commercial appeal that game has, and the ability to play games like that on the go. Like this, this was a perfect launch title in a year that we would eventually get a lot of other good games from a
Yes.
lot of other different, publishers,
Mhm.
not just Nintendo. I mean, I
Mhm.
think Nintendo had like the highlights of the year as far as what they put out on the console, but I think
Mhm.
other developers put out some really fantastic games as well, and this was the best way to do this. Imagine a world where 1-2 Switch was the sole Nintendo launch title for this game. I don't care what anybody says. I really enjoy 1-2 Switch. I love that game. I have played that game with my fiance. I played that game with Mario After Party. I have played that game with my parents.
Mhm.
I've played 1-2 Switch with my parents, who are in their early 60s. My parents, play those, or yeah, they played. I've played 1-2 Switch with them. Like, I don't care what anybody says about 1-2 Switch. I thoroughly enjoy that game. But imagine a world where 1-2 Switch was the only launch title for the Nintendo Switch. That's a scary world.
Mhm. It doesn't bounce because you don't have the success of Zelda at your disposal. Yeah, definitely.
No, like what Zelda did as a launch title was essentially build all the momentum. It was
Mhm.
the snowball effect. You know,
Yeah.
that was the snowflake that touched the ground, picked up some steam, rolled down the hill, and became a massive snowball.
But you have to imagine, like, it's not like it started small. It started with like a cannon fire, big ass snowball. It did not start small. It started very big, and that's
Yeah.
ideal in that snowball situation. You don't want to start small. You start big, and you get bigger.
Well, and not just that. I mean, but then there was a whole nice thing about Breath of the Wild where if you couldn't upgrade to a Switch immediately,
It
and you
was on the Wii U.
already yeah, if you already had a Wii U, you could get it on the Wii U there. And I think the crazy thing was about Breath of the Wild was the attach rate for it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, every Switch essentially had one. I think they said it was like I think it was like 102% attach rate. I'm like, wait, that's more than Switches sold. If there's 102% attach rate
The
for the
game sold
Switch,
better than the console itself.
yeah. So people were buying the game in anticipation of the console. Like, okay, I can't get the console now, but I can at least secure my game. Or then it was, or you could add in the people who bought the game and then the collector's edition to that number too, which means they bought the game twice.
Yes.
So people, the game outselling the console, that is a crazy thought in and of itself. Like,
Yes.
Breath of the Wild coming out for the Switch is almost an historical event for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
I don't think they're ever going to have a game with that high of an attach rate at the gate. Not like they did with Breath of the Wild.
No.
Whenever they release the Switch to, 4 or 5 years from now, there's not. I mean, how can you do what you just did? How can you repeat that success? Because I don't think that success is clonable. I don't think you can recreate that kind of success out of the door. I think that just happened, and you'll never see something like that again. But I mean, who cares? It doesn't really matter. It happened, and it was a huge way to start off their brand new console. Something else happened in March, 2 weeks after the release of the Switch. Splatoon 2 test fire.
Mm-hmm.
This was awesome. They had a test fire for this first Splatoon,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they did well. They actually had multiple test fires. They had one pre-release, and then they had a few, in the course of the Wii U's lifespan to, get people to jump on board with the game.
Definitely, yes.
This one was cool. I had so much fun in this test fire. I mean, it is just turf war, but it was our first chance to play the sequel to one of the Wii U's best games.
Also try out Splat Dualies. The Dualies.
Yes, the Dualies. But what was really hype about this for me was, I have a couple of TVs, at my place, but not enough docks. Mario After Party came to the house and to play with my fiance and I. Even though there was no way we were getting in the same room, we all wanted to just be together to experience the test fire.
Yes.
But so he comes over to the house and obviously he gets connected to the Wi-Fi and we all start playing. But we have two consoles docked, and After Party is playing handheld mode, right? And then I was like, let's switch because I want to play in the handheld mode. So he docked his console, I undocked mine, and I started playing in the handheld mode. And immediately, I was really impressed by how the game clicked in handheld mode. I was like, and this is just the demo.
Yeah.
If the demo clicks this good in handheld mode, the whole game has to be really good. Again,
it's also worth mentioning that's ways off from the initial Splatoon launch as well, and that played that good.
Yeah, because that was in March, and Splatoon didn't launch until July.
Yeah, I think July, sometime in summer at least.
Yeah, there was a 3-month gap between that test fire and the actual launch of the game, and I was thoroughly impressed, and I had so much fun in that test fire. And again, it was another way to build hype for a Nintendo IP. It was a good way to keep hype coming, especially since so many people bought a Nintendo Switch launch month that had never bought a Wii U.
So they never played Splatoon.
Exactly. So they, this was a really nice way to get people on board with one of their blooming IPs. So
especially
it was really
when they're fresh with Breath of the Wild still.
Yes. And honestly, it took me 2 weeks to beat Breath of the Wild. I kind of plowed through that game. Despite the fact that by the time I did beat the game, I already had 140 hours in it. And I still did that in a 2-week time span. Think about the play sessions I was having. My first
10 a day most days of the 2 weeks.
Yeah. Honestly, I downloaded the Nintendo Switch parental app just so I could get an accurate sense of my playtime with Breath of the Wild. My day one playtime was 12 hours. My day one playtime of Breath of the Wild was 12 hours. I was like, oh my god, I have done nothing but this game. I was like, I need to go take a shower. No, but yeah. So by the time the test fire got announced, I was actually ready to do something else on my Nintendo Switch. So it was really, really awesome that they did this test fire, and I'm a huge fan of Splatoon, so it was just a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun to do that, with Mario After Party and my fiance together in the room and just sit there and play that test fire. And it sucked it was only an hour that first day, but super happy that it was there. I mean, I think they did it for that weekend, so
yeah,
it was just a lot of fun. So what about you? Did you participate in that first test fire?
I didn't get my Switch till April, so I couldn't, but I did. I went to my friend's house and I coached them because they were, like you said, they didn't own a Wii U, so they didn't play Splatoon that much on the Wii U. So I was coaching them while they played pretty much. I didn't get to touch it. I played 2 matches at most probably. But it was a lot of fun, similarly to how you were just playing in handheld mode and 2 of you were docked, etc. It was sort of like a social gathering that was fun, and I had some more similar experiences with the other sort of test fires or test punches that went on with later in the year with the Splatfest and the test punch for ARMS, which we'll touch on later, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I guess the only other thing we can talk about for March was Switch shortages right after day one. So, honestly, to go back to the story I was telling earlier about how I actually found Mario After Party Switch, when I got to Target to look for the Pro Controller, that was my initial goal. But I had literally got to Target 15 minutes after they opened. And all they had left were 3 Switches. And they had told me they got a good number. And they wouldn't tell me the specific number. They said they had enough Switches to meet the demand of people waiting outside. So to see that they had 3 extras, I was like, maybe I should buy, one for After Party. Which I did. And in hindsight, I was like, probably should have bought another one to resell.
Oh, for sure.
All good.
Yeah.
Nah, but I'm not that guy.
No, I would scalp, but then there's I feel icky.
Yeah. There's this.
The money's nice, but
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I've sold some stuff off. Like I've bought stuff with the intent to sell it.
Not for $100 more or whatever than they bought it for.
Part of me thought that this was like the manufactured shortage that Nintendo likes to do. Nintendo is notorious. If you read the book Console Wars, or if you read some other literature that covers Nintendo's business practices,
they deliberately make less to draw hype.
Well, it's not that they make less; it's that they ship less.
Yeah.
I think the specific example in Console Wars was that a retailer would only get 25% of their initial order. Think about that. Let's say they order 200 consoles, you only get 25% of those 200.
That's 50.
Yeah, you're only getting 50 consoles
which is nothing
to meet the demand of thousands.
Yeah.
Millions. Like,
jeez.
Nintendo has a habit of manufacturing, these limited releases and telling us that there are shortages. This was the one time where I didn't actually blame Nintendo for manufacturing a shortage. I just don't think that the hype was accurately projected. I don't think they had a true gauge on the actual hype that there was for the release of this console. I think they underestimated what the initial reveal trailer in October 2016 did, and the events in January. I think they underestimated what those two events did to the minds of the consumers. And it's kind of one of those weird things where it's like, ultimately, I view the Switch as a very powerful handheld more than I do a console. Nintendo's never had an issue selling a handheld. The 3DS was the worst spot they have ever been in when it comes to a handheld console release. That was the worst, and they turned that around in the launch year. Like, it launched poorly, immediately.
And then price drop in August. Ocarina of Time.
And Mario Kart and Mario 3D World, all within the launch year. Had Kid Icarus been the launch title that it was supposed to be, I don't think it would have had the growing pains.
No.
Because there would have been a really nice, strong game to start with.
What was the strongest when it launched? Street Fighter, right?
Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And then Star Fox a couple months later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a remake of a remake. So yeah, I mean, Nintendo handhelds for the most part haven't had issues selling. Now we're talking if we're talking about the Switch as purely a handheld, we're talking from the 3DS to the Switch. Like, comparing the Switch to a standard console is kind of unfair. You can't really compare like the Switch to the Xbox One or the PS4. No. Like, if you're comparing it to those consoles, it is going to seem underpowered.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you're comparing it to the Wii U and the 3DS, well, then it is a significant improvement. Especially if you're comparing it to the 3DS, then it's a massive leap forward in handheld technology. By the 3DS standards, it's a massive leap forward. We're talking about a console that's putting out 720p max handheld versus whatever the 3DS is outputting because of its
480 PPI something.
Yeah. So we're talking about a massive difference in what their handheld, power is going to be able to do. I was not surprised by the initial success of the Switch. I'm not surprised at the continued success of the Switch because, again, I primarily view the Switch as a handheld, and it's a handheld that can connect to your TV. It is not an issue for Nintendo to sell a handheld. Now, to sell as many as they have, throughout the course of this year, and especially on launch day, that was a shock. That was a shock to me, but I think it was a bigger shock to them because it's like, we didn't make enough of these things. We made a lot of these things based on, Wii U numbers, but we didn't make enough of these things for a larger audience because we weren't sure the audience was going to be there. I totally do not blame Nintendo for the early Switch shortages. I don't even know who to blame. I don't think you can blame anybody. I think it just happened. I think
you blamed the Wii U.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Wasn't really fair even to blame the Wii U, but it's the only thing that makes sense to blame because, after just what a disaster it ended up being, it's just we'd rather be safe than sorry this time,
Exactly. That being said, though, I did have the inkling that I would need to pre-order the console, that I would need to be a day one supporter of it, not just for the sake of my YouTube channel and this podcast, but for the sake of myself, a hardcore Nintendo fan. I mean, I could not imagine the shortages that were going to happen. It just boggles my mind that this happened the way it happened, and it's because of the concept of the Switch. Mm-hmm. It's conceptually probably the best thing they could have done at Nintendo. Period. Like this was the console that the concept of this console has dug them out of a huge hole.
Yes.
And then the launch title, Breath of the Wild, has just really amplified just that overall success and turned it into like the analogy we described it. It's this huge snowball. rolling down the hill. So awesome start for the first 3 months for Nintendo. But what we're gonna do now, guys, is we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna tackle April through June. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Nintendo PowerZone. It's your boy, Nice193, and I'm joined by my co-host, Blues. Guys, your review continues. We are now in the month of April 2017, so I guess we want to start off with something that I thought was pretty awesome news, and that's the fact that Donkey Kong and Pokemon Red and Blue were nominated for the Video Game Hall of Fame. Huge deal. These are two big titles that they changed the course of history. Let's start with Donkey Kong. Nintendo back in the early 80s was struggling to find their place in the arcade market. Lots of video game companies were really successful in those late 70s, early 80s, and Nintendo wanted to enter into this medium. Prior to that, they were a card manufacturer who had Hanafuda cards, and they had tried their hand at some other outside ventures, but they never really found their stride with those outside ventures. Hiroshi Yamauchi, the then president of Nintendo of Japan, he saw a market and he said, "I want in on this market. This is lucrative. Let's make some games." They released a couple of games, but as the story goes, there was this game called Radar Scope that they were really big on in Japan. So they, basically set up house. They set up a location in New York, and they were like, "This is Nintendo of America." Minoru Arakawa, who is the son-in-law of Hiroshi Yamauchi, he was tasked with being the first president of Nintendo of America, and Yamauchi's goal was make our games a hit in America. He told that to Arakawa, and it was Arakawa's goal. So he gets these Radar Scope games. He said, "All right, well, I'll put them in some test markets to see how they do." Puts them at a bar. Then him and his wife, they check on it. Initially Radar Scope seemed to be like a success, so he orders some. A couple weeks later, goes back to the bar. Machine's empty. Problem with Radar Scope is that while it was fun to play initially, the replay value of Radar Scope was virtually non-existent. This put Arakawa into a panic. calls up Japan and says, this game isn't going to work. We need a new game ASAP because I have 3,000 units of radar scope being shipped to America. We need a different game. So Yamauchi basically says, we need a character. Starts this like internal contest at Nintendo Japan to develop a new game based on radar scope's, workings.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, young graphic designer Shigeru Miyamoto has a story. But he has the story with Popeye characters. That doesn't quite go to plan, as Nintendo doesn't truly have the license to make a Popeye arcade game. So, what does Miyamoto do?
He creates Donkey Kong.
I need characters of my own. Donkey Kong, Mario, Pauline. Those are his only hope to turn Radar Scope into a legitimate arcade smash. They designed the game relatively quickly, him and Gunpei Yokoi.
Mm-hmm.
Ship the new microchips or the whatever chips to America. All the American warehouse workers have to retrofit these cabinets with the new Donkey Kong. Put it in bars, put it in arcades. Smash hit. Smash hit. Donkey Kong single-handedly saved Nintendo's video game life. If Radar Scope had not been corrected, if they had not found a way to turn Radar Scope into something positive,
mm-hmm.
we would not have the Nintendo that we have now. We would not. I mean, I'm certain that they'd still be successful in other business ventures. They still manufacture Hanafuda cards, and they're still the #1 manufacturer of Hanafuda cards in Japan. But we'd have a vastly different Nintendo had Donkey Kong not been the success that it was. Because of Donkey Kong, Nintendo shifted its focus from Hanafuda cards into video games. The creation of Donkey Kong and Mario literally changed the way that we perceive video games. It is honestly weird that there has been 3 years of a video game Hall of Fame, and it is only upon the 3rd year that Donkey Kong gets a nomination, for the Hall of Fame. So yeah, we're talking about a very historic game. We're talking about the game, the characters in the game that would go on to save the video games as we know it, because we all know that a couple years after the release of Donkey Kong, we had the video game market crash due to oversaturation and bad video games.
And then come along the NES.
Yes, marketed as a toy, but with the best launch title again that Nintendo launch titles that you could possibly pack in. So Super Mario Brothers. But if it wasn't for Donkey Kong, we wouldn't have Mario. If it wasn't for Donkey Kong, we wouldn't have the NES. If it wasn't for that game, the video game industry is dead in America.
Oh,
maybe not completely dead.
Exist, but it wouldn't have gone as high as it has.
Yes, exactly. Like, this is a historic game. This changed the course of the industry, and this made Nintendo king. It put them at the top. So they get the big nod, but that's not the only nod they get. Obviously, Pokemon Red and Blue also get nominated into the Video Game Hall of Fame. And those games, again, not as historic, but changed the way that we view handheld gaming.
Definitely, yes.
To that point, I had a Game Boy launch year when I was a kid. I'm talking 1989. I had a Game Boy. The problem with the Game Boy is, as awesome as it was, the Game Boy was kind of just a Tetris machine for a long, long time. Now, there were some pretty big releases on the Game Boy. I mean, we got Link's Awakening, The Legend of Zelda. That's a fantastic game. We have the Wario Land series, the Mario Land series. Those are also good games. But for the most part, I would say that the Game Boy is a shovelware console. Lots of shovelware got released on the Game Boy, and that's not really Nintendo's fault. That's just it's just the way that other developers perceive making video games for the system. They thought they couldn't make games that look good because of the limited graphics and color scheme that the Game Boy presented. So they made games the way they were going to make them, and that's fine. Along comes Game Freak, a second-party developer for Nintendo, and they have this very ambitious game, one that gave the Game Boy like an extra 5 years of life.
Oh, for sure.
And one that single-handedly changed the way that we as people perceive handheld gaming.
Mm-hmm.
It took a genre like RPGs,
Mm-hmm.
and it made them compact, easily accessible, fun to understand, but it also plays on the human need to collect things.
Mm-hmm.
It takes all those elements and it combines them, split them up into two separate games, so that there's this factor that you can't get them all if you only have one game. So what you're gonna need is a friend who also has or a sibling who has the opposite game of you,
Mm-hmm.
and is willing to trade.
Yes.
And thus we have a whole new way to game handheld, a more interactive way of playing handheld games. Because prior to that, handheld gaming is primarily an individual experience.
Yes.
They took the individual experience out of handheld gaming and made it, multiplayer fun. You could battle with your friends, you could trade with your friends,
Mm-hmm.
and it spawned one of the most successful video game franchises of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Pokemon franchise is globally praised, and they do huge numbers, and they're system sellers. These are games that can single-handedly move a handheld console. And if we go even further, look at the massive success that Pokemon Go had in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
The Pokemon franchise is so core to Nintendo that I almost have trouble believing that they've allowed Game Freak to exist as a second-party developer. I find it odd that Nintendo, who is one of the richest companies in all of Japan, has not outright made some like power play to have some hostile takeover of Game Freak and just absorb them into the fold, bring them into like the EAD like family. But they've allowed them to exist as a second party. And
Pokemon Company International is sort of their version of that.
yeah,
so
but even
Pokemon Company International is sort of like allows Game Freak to not be Nintendo exclusive, but Pokemon to be Nintendo exclusive. So like, if Game Freak wanted to make Pokemon for another company, they could, but then they don't have the rights to use Pikachu or Charizard. They don't have the rights to do those things. They have to create all new characters entirely, and so you can't make Pokemon without Pikachu and Charizard. So what is it then? Sort of deal.
Yeah.
And there's other loopholes around that too, but it's complicated.
Yeah. But it's still, I feel like Nintendo had an opportunity to just nip that in the bud.
Mm-hmm.
The Pokemon Company acting as a medium between the two, it's kind of a roundabout way of, making a console exclusive title. Like, it's just weird, but hey, like I said, them getting nominated for the Video Game Hall of Fames, that is awesome. That's historic. What that means is that original copies of these games, like an original Donkey Kong arcade cabinet,
Mm-hmm.
and original copies of Pokemon Red and Blue, and an original Game Boy, will be preserved at the museum for all of time. And what I love about this is I am huge on video game preservation. I think it's something that we as gamers tend to overlook. But there is a lot of rich history in video games. Like, a lot of people worked really hard to make these games, and it's honestly it's mind-blowing to me that you would spend this much time to work. This is your life's work. You put your heart and your soul into making something, and to see things like transcripts or design, conceptual art, or even the graph paper that they draw the grids on, to see that get lost in the annals of time, thrown into a trash can and sent out into like some dump somewhere or a landfill, like that boggles my mind. Like, we should want to preserve video games. We should want to preserve all the design documents, all the transcripts, all the the correspondence, all the things that go into making a video game. All of these things should be preserved. And with the Video Game Hall of Fame, what they're doing is they're doing their best to preserve the final products of these things, so that people can appreciate them and enjoy them, long past the people who developed them and worked on them, long past us, the people who played these games. These will be maintained in fully working order until the end of time. They're going to be preserved for future people to see, and hopefully they'll learn to build an appreciation for these original games. So it's actually really cool that somebody out there is going to be curating this museum's worth of these video games and put them on display and preserve them.
Yes.
Any thoughts on this?
I think you pretty much summed it all up. It's very cool that we're like preserving all of this, and you're right. It is things change, and it's hard to find some of these originals. Surprisingly, you'd think we'll just go on eBay. You could find it might be worth a fortune, but you could get it. But no, it's hard. Like, it's not easy, and so I think that's very important that we're getting these taken care of while they're being preserved, and definitely like the original. I don't want to say like the perfection in their pristine originalness, but I don't know, and I feel like it's very important. I feel like it's a very good historical thing. As you already said, I do find it also surprising that 3 years into this existing, we're getting these games. I think they should have been in sooner as well. But other than that, I think you summed it up very nicely.
The years prior, Sonic the Hedgehog was nominated and he got in. The original Super Mario Brothers game got nominated, and that game was also preserved, as well as an NES and a Sega Genesis, respectively, so that those consoles could be. All right, moving forward, April 26th through May 22nd, McDonald's did a promotional tie-in with Super Mario, and we got our first Super Mario Happy Meal since the release of the original Mario Kart 8, and pretty good Happy Meal set. On top of that, they ran a monthly promotion where you could win a Nintendo Switch by ordering food and then texting the code on the receipt to McDonald's little call center, and then you can win a Nintendo Switch with a copy of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So yeah, that was a really cool thing. Like, what I like about this promotional tie-in is it's what it represents. It represents the shift in Nintendo, starting from the end of the Wii U's lifespan into the beginning lifespan of the Switch. Is that Nintendo has been far more gracious with allowing their intellectual property to appear in other mediums and whatnot. So obviously, we're getting a theme park at Universal Studios. We've had a huge shift in designer clothing with Nintendo.
Dancing for 21.
Exactly. Yep. We also have the Super Mario Brothers movie in the works at Illumination. We're seeing Nintendo just allowing their IP to exist outside of the games in a lot of ways. So to see this Happy Meal promotion, say that again?
And inside my breakfast bowl as well.
Oh yeah, exactly. If you were able to copy a box of Super Mario cereal, which I can happily report that I am one of the people who found a box. I found
You found
a
two.
box.
You got one. There were two.
There was one other. There were two, but I didn't want to be that guy, man. I'm not like, what am I gonna do? I don't like marshmallow cereal. Straight up, I do not like cereal with marshmallows in it. I only bought the box because I wanted to get a box of Super Mario cereal because it's freaking Super Mario cereal. And that's another tie-in that we can go ahead and say is that obviously we exist in a world where there is now Super Mario cereal again. But regardless, I'm not going to be that guy that buys, both of the two boxes on the shelf and deprive somebody else of a box.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's that guy right behind you.
Yeah, who was gracious enough to let me actually film me grabbing, the one box, because I'm like sitting there impeding him. It's like, just let me do this real quick. I got a YouTube channel. But still, no, it was like we exist in a world now where Nintendo has loosened the iron grip with their IP, and they're allowing their characters to exist in outside mediums, and to see them do a Happy Meal promotion. Happy Meal promotions are like the best and easiest way to make people aware of your IP. I mean, think about how many people eat at McDonald's a day. Millions. Millions. I'm talking millions with an M. Right? Maybe even more. On a daily basis, you're going to tie in some of the most popular characters in the existence of the human race. You're gonna do a tie-in with these beloved IPs. That is just brilliant marketing, because it's almost free. It's almost free, especially, and then you do a console tie-in where, like, hey, buy some food, text this number, you might win a Switch. Well, guess what? There's a bunch of people who are gonna increase their fast food intake. They're gonna buy more fast food from McDonald's. McDonald's wins. Nintendo wins because they're selling more of these toys. And yeah, I actually got 2 whole sets of all these toys. They're actually pretty good toys too. I was surprised. I was like, these are pretty awesome. Like, they all have, like, some kind of fun feature. Or, like, there's a light up Mario, or there's another Mario that makes the jumping sound whenever you lift it off the ground. These are cool toys. It was a very cool tie-in, and it kind of just got me. It got people amped up, because we all know that Mario Kart was coming at the end of the month. So the Happy Meal started April 26th. 2 days later, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Brilliant marketing. Just brilliant marketing, because it's like, hey, if you love Nintendo, we got you covered.
It's mutually beneficial. It's like Nintendo is selling McDonald's for McDonald's, and McDonald's is selling Nintendo for Nintendo, and no party really changes what they're doing too much.
Exactly.
They're feeding off each other's success in a mutually beneficial way, and they're having their party do all the work with nothing really changing.
Oh yeah, completely nice little symbiotic relationship. 2 parties benefiting. Something else got announced in March. Something that I literally thought was, April. Something else happened in April. I thought this was like the world's latest April Fool's Day joke. Nintendo announced the 2DS XL, a clamshell version of the 2DS, one that's more in line with the standard 3DS. And I thought it was a joke. I really thought it was a joke, but I'm like, what is the date? Oh, it's April 20th.
A little late.
Kind of late for an April Fool's Day joke.
Yeah.
But they had a cool little announcement trailer, and yeah, the console itself, these are like the nicest versions of the 2DS, 3DS family. They're nice, they're really sleek, and they're extraordinarily lightweight. And while you are losing the 3D function, I mean, this late into the 3DS's lifespan, the 3D function has worn its welcome, and even the Pokemon franchise has abandoned the 3D in the 3DS. So it was really cool to see them try to eke out a little bit more life in their DS, their 2DS, 3DS family of consoles. And it's smart, because even though the Switch has been a success thus far, I think it's safe to say that the 3DS is a much more established console, and the back catalog for it is extraordinarily well done. So it is the safer bet right now for consumers, and they're also easier to find than the 3DS and the 2DS. So there's that as well.
Personally, I still really like my Galaxy 3DS more. I just like it more now. I don't know. So It's not perfect, but I do see the appeal of it. I do prefer my
Yeah.
3DS though. Just saying.
No, I mean, and my brother who hasn't had a 3DS in he sold his 3DS when they announced the Switch.
Got
Literally,
it.
he's like to like supplement the cost of the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
They announced the 2DS XL. He got right back on board and he bought one. Just because the library is so strong for the 3DS.
Definitely, yes.
So many great games. Like I think about the catalog of the games and I see, obviously Mario 3D Land, Mario Kart 7, The Legend of Zelda,
Link Between
Link
Worlds,
Between
Ocarina of
Worlds,
Time
which
3D, Majora's Mask,
yeah, there's just so many really good games on that console that
Icarus.
it's criminal to
Metroid.
not have a 2DS or a 3DS.
Yeah,
Like if you're a Nintendo fan, like it's a must-have console.
for sure.
And like I said, I just think it's smart that Nintendo is trying to eke out whatever little bit of life they can out of the system.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the last little piece of news we have for April 2017 was that the NES Classic was officially discontinued. Now, Nintendo put out a report by Reggie who basically stated that the NES Classic wasn't supposed to be a long-term product for Nintendo. It was supposed to be a limited release, and that they actually increased the numbers of NES Classics made because the demand was so high.
Yes.
To be fair, that's kind of a BS statement, and we know why it was a BS statement now. And we speculated why they would be discontinuing this console that was massively popular during the holiday season of 2016. But yeah, they gave it a total BS response. And they never actually really met the demand for the NES Classic. Very, very weird. And the whole meme that Nintendo hates money started to pop up around the time that they announced the Classic was discontinued. The worst part was that a couple months later, I was, watching TV and working at my computer, and I get a treasure truck update from Amazon saying that they have a truckload of NES Classics, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, do you know the struggle I went through to get an NES Classic? I got one, and I had to have a network of people to get one. Like, I had After Party looking for me, I had my parents looking for me, I had my brother, my fiance, my sister-in-law. I had like a network of people trying to find me an NES Classic. And Amazon just had a truckload just sitting there somewhere doing what? So yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a weird discontinuation of a product, and just the mentality of Nintendo when they're having such a good year to discontinue a popular product where the demand has yet to be met. Odd decision making by Nintendo, at least initially.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so that'll do it for April. Any thoughts on April as a whole?
It was definitely a weirder month, but also a good and bad month. I mean, I guess none of it was really bad, but it was definitely weird with the 2DS, the 2DS XL, and the NES Minis. But Donkey Kong and Pokemon getting nominated is great. McDonald's selling Switch and selling Nintendo and vice versa for Nintendo was definitely cool. I think it wasn't a good month, it wasn't a bad month. There wasn't too much happening of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe releasing at the end of the month. That's when I got my Switch finally. So there's that for me personally. But I mean, there's not really that much. But it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was a mix of both, give or take.
Yeah, so it was kind of a weird month, but I mean, they were really kind of getting by April through the continued success of Breath of the Wild, and Switches were trickling out little by little during the month of April, and obviously Mario Kart,
surprisingly.
Yeah, Mario Kart 8 being the core release that month, which very cool.
And once again, Splatoon, not many people played the Wii U, so they didn't get to experience the original version of 8. So it works out for a lot of those consumers as well.
Exactly. So moving on into May, May was a quiet month. So the core title release in May was Ultra Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
I picked up that game day one. I'm a
Mhm.
huge Street Fighter fan. I'm a huge fighting game fan. And Street Fighter 2 to this day remains my favorite fighting game of all time. So it was nice to be able to pick up like the latest version of that, even though the game is somewhat broken with the addition of like Violent Can. It's still a really really fun game, and I really would like Capcom to build a tournament scene around it because, I mean, it's honestly, in my opinion, it's the best version of Street Fighter 2. So, and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, the meta would be dominated by a lot of Violent Cans, but the way Violent Can fights, there would be a bunch of awesome what's it called, Ditto matches between Violent Can versus Violent Can. The other major thing to happen was the ARMS Global Test Punch was in May. Uh, this was a lot of fun, and this was like a month-long celebration. They did a couple of test punches for ARMS. The first one was so successful that they actually added Twintel to the second test punch, which was cool because she wasn't initially part of the test punch lineup.
No.
But after they debuted her in the direct that also happened the month of May, they added her to the game. Like, the fan reception for Twintel upon her, her unveiling was really high. People loved Twintel, and people loved this. I think this was it. This was the moment where people got what ARMS was. Like, upon initially seeing it back in the January Switch event, like I said, I was more excited about 1-2 Switch than I was about ARMS. To see ARMS and play ARMS, I was immediately pulled in. I was like, this is awesome. And I love the character of Ninjara. This is one of my favorite video game characters of all time. But on top of that, while playing it, you realize how great the character designs and stuff for ARMS was. Like, ARMS, hands down, has the best character design since Street Fighter 2. Just a great, great game. And that was another really awesome way to showcase a game. You make it playable for a few days over the course of a month. I like the game instantly clicked with me playing this test fire, and I had so much fun. I mean, and all that was available was the party mode. Like, you weren't even playing like the arcade mode or like the ranked mode
or other online modes. Yeah,
you're just playing the party mode, which it's like a mixed bag of like 1 minute you could be
basketball, and fighting.
You had no idea what you were gonna get.
No,
but it was still it was so much fun that I was like, I need this game day one. And obviously, ARMS is my fighting game of 2017. And it's like, I love that game, and that's in a year where a Street Fighter game and Pokken Tournament DX got released. ARMS is my favorite fighting game of 2017. It's all because of this Global Test Punch. The Global Test Punch really changed like my opinion of this game. Just turned me all around. Thoughts on the Global Test Punch?
The Global Test Punch was honestly one of the highlights of my whole year. So there's like, cause I never doubted ARMS for a second, and everyone sort of made fun of it, and then my over enthusiastic love for ARMS when like they announced it at the January event, etc. And I'm like, no, this is gonna be great, and I'm gonna show you guys. I'm gonna throw a test punch party, and I did. So it was like, it wasn't that big because not many people could make it. But then like I had 2 Switch setups, one for me, one for my friend, on our 2 different TVs, and we had 3 people per Switch. And so we got 3 people on mine, 3 people on the other one, and we'd always rotate. So we'd play the 2-player party mode in the test punch. And so we got 2 people, and then we swap every sort of round, and we'd rotate controllers. And it was very fun. We loved it. My friends really got into it, and I was really happy that they finally saw what I saw. I played Ribbon Girl for the whole entire test punch. I absolutely love Ribbon Girl. Despite not playing her anymore, I want to play Ribbon Girl. But Springman's he's just so much more, I don't say for me, and I guess a lot of other people, he's a very popular, dominating character. But I just clicked with him more at the end of the day. And I played Ribbon Girl for the whole thing, and I absolutely loved her. So it was very fun being able to get around with these 6 people playing ARMS every single hour that it was up. We had this schedule. Then also I leave my girlfriend at the time's house. Okay, but I gotta go to my friend's house so we can start up the setups for ARMS test punch in a bit. And it was stupid, but we would set that up and it was just so fun. I loved it. The game was great. I made sure, like you said, to pre-order it afterwards. Because I don't know why I didn't pre-order it before, because I absolutely knew I wanted it. But I didn't pre-order it until after that. And I pre-ordered it at 3 different stores. And then I eventually went with one of them. Because it was I was leaving for my sister's grad party the day it came out. The day before it came out or something. And so I couldn't get it on the pre-order day. So I'm like, okay, what's going to happen is I'm going to pre-order it, but I'm going to have my girlfriend at the time pick it up. But then I'm like, okay, well, she's busy, so I'm going to have her brother, who's picking up a copy of the game already, pick it up when he picks up his. But that means I need to go to a different GameStop so that he doesn't drive to 2 different GameStops into the same day. And then, I eventually thought of something else, and then I did that, and I'm like, okay, well, screw all this. I'll just download it off the eShop. And that's what I did.
Awesome.
And my thumbs and arms are, tired and sore for the whole time I was at my sister's graduation from college, because I did not sleep. It's just arms, and my arms got so tired, my thumbs got tired, and sore for 3 days straight. My thumbs after using pro controllers and stuff. It's awful. But yeah.
No, but that's pretty much it for May though, man. I thought May was another weirdly. It was for what could be perceived as a slow, major title release month for that month. It honestly, I thought just the inclusion of the test fire that month makes the month of May a success in my opinion. So
I would like to mention before we move on from May, you mentioned that the big game for you was Street Fighter 2. For me, I like fighting games. Don't get me wrong, but I'm more of a fan of RPGs, and so Disgaea 5 Complete, I believe, came out in May, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it did as well.
And that's what I spent that was my big flagship for that month. And I feel like it was sort of interesting how just the 2 audiences got 2 kind of different flagships, minor flagships that month. So for me, I went the Disgaea 5 Complete route.
Yeah. So May was actually a pretty full month in my opinion, but not as big as this next month we're about to talk about. June 2016. 2017, my bad.
Well, yeah.
June 2017. Woo! June 2017. What can I say? Well, let's start things off where Nintendo did. They had a direct, a Pokemon specific direct, and they announced in this direct Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the basically would amount to remix versions of Sun and Moon. They unveiled a new form for Solgaleo, new form for Lunala.
Well, technically, those are both Necrozma's forms.
Necrozma, yeah. And we see Necrozma. Yeah. We see all this cool stuff, and they tell us that it's a different version of of the events that happen. And I'm a huge Pokemon fan, so I was actually pretty hype about this. Plus, I love the Alola region. Despite that game, being probably not one of the harder Pokemon games, probably on the weaker scale as far as when it comes to difficulty. Yes. I did enjoy Sun and Moon. But more for the region itself, because the region felt alive, more than Kalos did or even Unova.
I still feel like Kalos more personally.
Yeah, I just felt like the region felt alive to me. Maybe some of the characters were cheesy, but it was the environment, moving my character through the region felt like that region was live. But they also announced Pokken Tournament DX. Pokken Tournament was a smash hit on a very poor selling console.
It wasn't even a smash hit, is the weird part. It sold decently, but then it dropped off.
Yeah, But Pokken Tournament is it's a great fighting game. It's a strong competent fighting game that takes like the core tenets of fighting games and finding a Pokemon and building Pokemon around it. It takes all the good things that you love about fighting games, adds a Pokemon skin to it, adds some unique gameplay elements, and it lowers the learning curve. Like it takes all that and it presents it in this very nice package. Like Pokemon themselves have never looked better than they do in Pokemon Tournament. Like the characters that they added in, into that they chose to be fighters in that game, they're all very unique. Like when you see like a Suicune in a fighting game, my major thought process was when they first announced Pokemon for the Wii U was like, how do you fight with a character like Suicune? And then you realize that it's a majorly projectile-based character, and whereas Pikachu is like,
close
he's kind of
speed combat.
he's like aggro, and he has his projectiles, and he has like the close combat, and he has all these different elements, and each Pokemon is unique. And you take like Machamp, and Machamp is a straight powerhouse brawler, but his projectile game is like the weakest.
Yes,
like he has a projectile, but the distance that it travels,
the speed and the lag, etc.
Yeah, like it's a very well thought out fighting game brought to you by the people who make like the Naruto fighting games and the Tekken team. It's a really strong, competent fighting game. And it had an early success, but it petered off. And I honestly think that was part of the console that it was initially launched on.
Probably,
and
yes.
Sold better on the Switch, but again, Nintendo needs to do a better job of building the community for this game, and I believe they will, because they're making this really hard, strong push into like the esports, into esports. So I think Pokemon Tournament will become a core title for them when it comes to esports. I feel like they just need to kind of push that further along.
The big problem with that is just that like it's at Worlds and it has a grand Worlds tournament, but it's not any of the other events, no regionals, no anything, or even the smaller play Pokemon clubs. Like I host my own play Pokemon club, and I have Pokemon Tournament for the Wii and DX for the Switch there, but it's not like official thing that we put on. We put that on because we want to.
You see,
I think it doesn't get the recognition otherwise.
It's different for me because I live in Florida and we have the annual CEO event. The community event Orlando, which all the proceeds go to, the majority of the proceeds go to charity.
Yes.
That is a qualifying event for Pokemon Worlds. They do, like the Pokemon Tournament event that they have there has been a qualifier for Pokemon Worlds twice. And then Evo was also, Evo 2016 was a qualifying event there as well.
But those aren't like monthly or weekly get-togethers like the Pokemon clubs are, which would be great. There's no season for Pokemon. There's Evo and CEO and Worlds itself, and that's the season.
Yeah, they need to do a better job of integrating Pokemon into the already established,
VGC
Pokemon.
and PCG.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But if they do that, if they figure, it's not hard for them because they already have the ground rules in place. They just need to apply them into Pokemon.
For sure, yes.
All right. So, next major piece of news in June was that the Super Nintendo World trailer was unveiled, and that basically took the concept art that we saw in December of 2016, put it into a 3D space, and we got a virtual simulation of what the park is going to look like. And I damn near cried when I saw this trailer. Just because, like, my goal has always been to build a game room that is a mini Mushroom Kingdom. Like, that's why you see things like the Chain Chomp light in the background. You see that light back there. You see all these things that I immerse. Yeah, you see these things that I immerse myself in. And that's just me trying to do it. But this is Nintendo saying, we're making this theme park a reality with Universal Studios, and there's going to be some groundbreaking shit here. And, if the leaked like concept art that I've seen and specifications for some of these rides are legit, this is going to be an amazing theme park. But that trailer, that trailer was great. And then they also had the groundbreaking ceremony, which is also available on YouTube. Now it is primarily in Japanese, but the head of Universal Studios theme park is also there, and he speaks English. So all the major news that's going to come out of that groundbreaking ceremony was said by him, and that's all in English. So you can watch all of that, and it was a pretty cool groundbreaking ceremony.
Yes.
But it's confirmation that this theme park is not just a pipe dream. It's a reality, and it's coming. And to see that trailer, just the sheer joy that I felt.
Definitely.
All right. So the big news of June.
E3, correct?
E3, yep, E3. So much stuff at E3 this year.
I mean, the headliner was Odyssey, so let's start there, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we got to see so much stuff from Nintendo. Basically, we got to see, the Cascade Kingdom and New Donk City in action a lot at E3. They, especially New Donk, they wanted New Donk was like the priority of their E3 showcasing, because their show floor was New Donk City. They built New Donk City in their show floor. They had a Sherm that had been captured by Mario in the place. They had buildings. They had Goombas, stacked Goombas with Mario on top. Obviously, they had a scale version of the Odyssey with Mario on top of it, and holding spinning Cappy on his finger. Like New Donk, they want to showcase New Donk really hard, and they also want to really showcase Jump Up Superstar. They spent so much time highlighting that song. It was in between all the commercial. Whenever they broke, they're playing Jump Up Superstar in the background. They just spent so much time showcasing New Donk and just teasing that Pauline scene in New Donk.
Definitely, yeah. And I know that they and cut to commercials for the Treehouse Live. They would play that song, definitely. And I don't quite remember, but I almost want to say they had team of people dressed as New Donk citizens that would do the dance to they'd start dancing at the commercial break in the show floor itself, which looked pretty cool. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
it wasn't just it would just they didn't just show that off. They showed off so much more of the game. We saw the Lost Woods for the first time. We saw
a bit more of Toast Arena, correct?
Toast Arena, the Cascade Kingdom also, because we got to see the T-Rex for the in action. We got to see so much of that game, and I kind of wish they had held off on some of those things they showed.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Whatever, it was New Donk. I mean, Super Mario Odyssey, an amazing game, and I'm glad that they really dedicated their show floor time to that a lot. What else did we get at E3? We got that. I guess it was a direct. I don't know what they want to call it this year, but in that direct, we got to see a little bit of. We got to see the new Yoshi title. We got to see the new Kirby title. Both of them don't have specific titles as of yet. I do want to say that I thought Yoshi looked really, really clean.
We got to see Xenoblade
and Fire Emblem as well. So we're going really hardcore. We got to see the Champion amiibo for Breath of the Wild, which some of the best looking amiibo that they've designed. We got Rocket League announced.
Which I'm very happy with that we have Rocket League and things like that on the Switch now.
Yeah. To shift away from Nintendo's press conference, Bethesda announced Doom.
Yes,
for the Switch, and that was a big one. Yeah, I mean, while Doom is not a new game at this point, it's Doom coming to the Nintendo Switch, so that was pretty cool. Did they? I believe they announced Wolfenstein 2 there as well, or could
I think that might have been, but I'm not quite sure if that was at E3. I know they had both together for something.
I think that was a September event. I was getting things confused.
Maybe.
No, but they did announce Doom at E3. Obviously, they showed off Skyrim.
Yes.
Moving away from Bethesda, Ubisoft.
Mario Rabbids
started their press conference with Mario Rabbids. Like, they were so confident in what they had created that they decided to highlight their press conference, to begin their press conference by showing Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. And we all knew about this game going into E3. We knew this game was a reality because of all the leaked conceptual art, and then the leaked key art that came out that had like what the characters' roles were within the the course of the game. We all were really highly skeptical. I don't know a person on the planet that didn't think this was a good idea. This was a horrible idea to everybody except the people who were making this game. Everybody talked shit about it. Nobody wanted this game until we saw it. The moment we saw this game, it clicked. That trailer that they showed off, the gameplay that they showed off, everybody's mind just exploded. It was XCOM. It was XCOM with Mario characters and Rabbids. And it just worked in all the right ways when it shouldn't have. And it really just kicked the year off, man. Like I mean, that was it. That was like our first like real major third-party title that was coming to the Switch. And it looked great. It looked good. Like graphically, what they showed off at E3 just looked amazing. I mean, I was just excited. I was on board. Again, after their event, I pre-ordered Mario plus Rabbids the Collector's Edition. Like, it just looked so good. And then that moment where, Miyamoto walks on stage and he's got the blaster on his hand and he calls out to Davide Soliani, the director of the game. And there's that beautiful moment where, Davide just cries out of like the sheer joy. That is one of my E3 moments that I'm never going to forget, was the moment where Davide Soliani gets like recognized by his idol, Miyamoto, and he just breaks down into tears and he's just overly happy. It was like that is my highlight of E3 2017 was watching Davide Soliani have his moment. So I thought that was like really cool. They announced another game for the Switch as well, one that uses NFC.
Starlink Battle for Atlas, right?
Yes, Starlink Battle for Atlas, which is a multi-platform game from Ubisoft. That's going to be coming out for the Xbox One and the PS4 as well. The Nintendo Switch getting core, third-party titles like that. That was another great announcement. And on top of that, they told us about the first DLC pack that we're getting. And that was the Master Trial. I don't have anything bad to say about the Master Trials other than that I think that a lot of that stuff shouldn't have been paid for DLC. The DLC pack one just kind of left me underwhelmed. Like the Master Trials was cool as far as like the Trial of the Sword. I think that was pretty much the highlight of the content. But then Master Mode,
for sure,
was something that we've had in other Zelda games, and it wasn't DLC. So I just feel some type of way about DLC Pack 1 to this day. I don't want to talk bad about it, but I did not enjoy DLC Pack 1, and I honestly didn't even play it until recently. Waited for DLC Pack 2 before I even immersed myself in any of what DLC Pack 1 had to offer. I was just very underwhelmed by it. Outside of that, I think the three big announcements from Nintendo's E3 presentation were obviously that Pokemon would be moving to the Switch for its next iteration. That they were done with the 3DS after Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and they were shifting to the Switch. So hopefully we'll hear something about that soon. They showed off nothing. It was just an announcement from Ishihara-san. Metroid Prime 4.
Yes.
Was the big highlight, I guess, for a lot of people. Even though all they showed off was the number 4.
And a confirmation that's in development, though. But
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was very non-subtle way to say, hey, we're working on this game.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to show you diddly squat about it. We're just going to get you hyped for it with no other indication. And we got... Go ahead.
They did a similar thing with Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. It's like they got Sakurai on stage and they're like, so I haven't even started this game yet, but I can tell you it's coming. It's confirmed. I'm working on it. It's happening, but you're gonna have to wait because I have not started at all. and so it's one of those things where at least we know we are getting this game, and that's super exciting. Like, who didn't want another Smash Brothers game? Who doesn't want to do Metroid Prime 4? So it's just that recognition that like it's happening, and we can look forward to it. It's a ways away, but it's happening finally. You know,
yes, like we know you want it, and we're working on it.
Mm-hmm. And that's all you need. That's all you need.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we're going to be unsatisfied for a long time.
Exactly. And then the other title that was announced, the other big title, since we're already on the Metroid hype train right now, is Metroid Prime Samus Returns was announced, but not even during the event. It was the first thing they showed during their Treehouse Live.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, I just got so excited. I was like, okay, Metroid Samus Returns, or Return of Samus as it was originally called for the Game Boy, was one of the better Game Boy games in the Game Boy's library early on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool that there was going to be this full 3DS remake with, updated graphics, new battle mechanics, and yeah, just a nice way to like build off of that Metroid Prime 4 hype.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Like, we showed you Metroid Prime 4, but here's a Metroid game that you can have
this year.
So, very cool E3 from Nintendo. I thought this was one of their better E3s. It definitely makes it E3 2016. I'm sorry, 2015, which was lackluster. And E3 2016 was pretty much like Zelda Fest.
But still, that was better than what people put out, even though it's just one game in Pokemon.
Yeah, they didn't show off much in 2016.
No.
But Breath of the Wild was, it was highlight of... Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was
the highlight
by its own. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even the Switch version of Breath of the Wild.
No.
It was the Wii U version with functions that were no longer in the final product.
Well, was in the final product.
Yeah, but the touchscreen stuff that they had at E3 ended up being like completely scrapped because of the transition from development from the Wii U to the Wii to the Switch.
All right, yeah, fair enough.
All right. So also in June, after E3, ARMS comes out 2 days after E3 ends. So we all got into that.
They had the tournament for Pokken in ARMS.
Yes. They had the Pokken Splatoon tournament and ARMS tournament at E3, where we crowned our first ARMS champion.
Zerk, right?
Zerk, yep.
Mr. Habuki, really, but Zerk won the actual out of the contestants.
Yeah, Zerk won the tournament, and in a pretty dominant fashion. I don't think Zerk was truly challenged by anybody at the tournament. His twin tail skills early on really, I think what Zerk did at that tournament really shifted where the meta has gone for ARMS, because if we look at who is top tier, twin tail sits atop that list, and it's because Zerk
not really anymore after the patch notes. No, not as much. But,
not as much, but for the early going of ARMS, twin tail really dominated the meta in the first couple months of its release, and I think it's because Zerk showcased what the character was capable of with her basic ARMS set, and he did great. I mean, he did great. He won that awesome belt. As far as Splatoon 2 is concerned, America beating Japan in like the craziest grand finals of all time, where
for sure.
They were down like 2-0, and one more game sends them home, and as runner up, and they come back to just streak the Japanese team in this great moment. Pokken Tournament was a little bit of was like out of all the games that they showcased, it was the most understated, but it still had a good tournament, and we got to see
Alistair Smythe won, I believe, right?
yeah, and we got to see Krogunk in action for the first time, and man, Krogunk is a beast.
We also saw Empoleon. I think Matt picked Empoleon.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Other contestants picked Scizor and Darkrai as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like Nintendo's E3 showcasing was pretty phenomenal because they utilized like their IP so smart, so brilliantly. Like those tournaments really made E3 for me. They were like great moments. I was like, wow, this is not your typical E3 show from Nintendo. None of the other companies even come close to doing what Nintendo did with this. I think the closest thing you can say is that PlayStation X and the Capcom Cup coinciding with one another are the closest thing. But I mean, those are two separate companies doing an event together. What Nintendo did in all three was all Nintendo, and then they had some really great commentary. From like D1 and some Nintendo staffers.
Yes.
They all did really, really good. I mean, like those tournaments were epic. I almost forgot about them, but they were really epic. And just really good ways to highlight games that are up and coming.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that. And I guess the last piece of news for June is that the Super NES Classic Edition was announced 2 weeks after E3. This was an odd choice because this was something they could have announced at E3, and it wouldn't have taken anything away from the show. I think maybe they didn't want it to get lost in any of the Switch news or the 3DS news that was happening, but they announced the Super NES Classic, and with that, Star Fox 2 was getting an official release.
Finally, yeah.
After 20 years, lost in time, like a game that was lost in the annals of time, finding life on what's essentially an emulator system.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's an officially licensed emulator system.
Mm-hmm. So therefore it's not emulation, it's playing the game.
Yeah, it's like this was a marquee moment where we're getting this lost game.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's not good, it doesn't matter. This is your only legit way to play this classic game.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me was like a must-have. And then they learned from the mistake of the NES Classic and actually had pre-orders for this system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, pre-orders for this system still a bitch.
Yeah,
but you could get a pre-order for the system.
Yes.
And the trailer for it was really cool. Where like guy like dumps like all the Super NES cartridges into the machine, and then
it's very nice.
Out comes out. Yeah, exactly. And what I love about the commercial is that they use like both of the slogans for the Super Nintendo. So they did "Now you're playing with power, super power," but they also said "Play it loud," which was like their big like campaign like in the mid to late 90s in order to like recapture market share during the console wars of that era.
Yes.
Just a very awesome commercial. It got me hyped for the system. And I mean, I would have gotten it regardless, but that commercial just built up a lot of hype, in my opinion, for me. And awesome system. All right. But guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap part 1 of our year in review up. Part 2 will be coming out same day, same time. But we're going to take a 10-minute commercial break, and we're going to come back with part 2, which will get us through the remainder of the year. So guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.